What you just watched is the Night King, the big bad raid boss of Game of Thrones, resurrect a dragon known as Viserion. He brings it back up as an undead ice drake. This scene is okay for its purpose, namely to create a cliffhanger for the next episode in the series, but I feel like it could have been done a whole lot better. In fact, it already has been. About 11 years prior to the release of this scene, we got this. Blizzard is notorious for its beautiful cinematics. To this day, I'd still consider their art department to be one of the world leaders in terms of creating high quality promotional cinematics for their games. But this one cinematic is without a doubt the best I've experienced over the years I've spent playing through a number of different titles. And while the perfect cinematic does not exist, let's talk about the one that came pretty close. The whole thing is predicated on setup and payoff. Arthas, you see, is a fallen hero, much like Anakin Skywalker from Star Wars or the less popular Priscilla from Claymore. Characters like these tend to stick in our heads because of the very realistic moral compass they possess. I'm sure we all know that one person who has tried so hard to do good that they end up circling all the way back round to bad. It's almost a selfish nobility behind people like this, and it reminds me of a famous quote by Lich about what happens when you stare into a void for too long. But let's kill that tangent right there. We were talking about setup and payoff. The cinematic leans into the fact that the last time we saw Arthas in Warcraft 3, he had ascended into a being simply known as the Lich King. The first thing we hear is the powerful voice of King Tyrannus Menethil II, praising the birth of his son, Arthas.
My son, the day you were born, the very forests of Lordaeron whispered the name Arthas.
And just like that, you're hooked, you're invested, and you're ready for what's coming next in the cinematic, and it only continues to impress. Arthas is dwarfed in comparison to the scale of the icebergs near his throne. This icy monochromatic landscape isolates his black metallic gear from the background and creates contrast with the steel of his cursed blade Frostmourne. Blizzard truly flexed their graphical talent here. The textures were definitely a huge talking point for their art department during the development of all of this. Just look at the shine in his sword, the glow in his eyes, and the realistic hair and fur in the cinematic. Hair and fur is notoriously difficult to imitate digitally. The core component that drives the appeal of the cinematic is actually a word also used by King Menethil while describing his expectations for Arthas' future.
And I know you will show restraint when exercising your great power.
Restraint. The visuals are toned down and the music builds up from an ambient vocal performance. The selection of a boy alto to clash with the bassy narration of King Tyrannus is not only an inspired decision, but one that builds multiple layers of contrast into the cinematic.
We took some music from the outro of War 3X and we set words to it which express his coronation ceremony. And we had it originally sung by a male tenor, and while we were recording it, we were watching the rough footage of the cinematic while it was going down. I think it hit three of us at once. What if a boy alto sang it and juxtaposed this kind of innocent voice singing about the coronation against these really strong visuals of Arthas after, you know, a lot of bad stuff has happened.
I feel the precision of the music as a response to Arthas is only outmatched by the precision of his movement. Everything he does is cold, calculated, and inch tight. His deliberate movement screams for attention and keeps you glued to your seat in anticipation of what the payoff is for all of these actions. And as for that payoff, let's just say Blizzard didn't miss.
I watched with pride as you grew into a weapon of righteousness. Remember, our line has always ruled with wisdom and strength. And I know you will show restraint when exercising your great power.
Now that's how you resurrect a fucking dragon. For me, it's not even the Syndragosa resurrection. The most captivating part of the cinematic is how in the beginning the scale of everything seemed to isolate Arthas. He looked like a lonely Lich King. This level of isolation almost made him feel vulnerable or maybe even remorseful for his previous actions. Then he displays just a glimmer of his power and the scale dynamic flips on its head. He has everything. He's got a dragon larger than the icebergs that made him look small, and he has a huge undead army just to top it off. It's terrifying actually. The most terrifying part about this is that he's simply just bolstering his forces here. He's not making a display of power to instill fear. He's not trying to threaten anyone. He's just outerworldly strong at this point, and he's not fazed by any of it. I think if we're talking about a metaphor or at least communicating ideas visually, there it is. The Lich King, the only thing in the last frame of the cinematic. He's taking all the space and he's ready for all the smoke. Crazy.